Hello and welcome to the Bartholomew School GCSE English Language Revision video for English Language Paper 1, Question 3. This is the structure question. This video is for students in Year 11. We're going to be working through the example paper on the text called A Rose for Winter. I'm going to be making some assumptions in this video, namely that you have already completed question 2, the language question, on this paper, and therefore you've already read it once and you have a printed copy of it. If you haven't and you don't know where to find it, pause this video and go to the first one in this series by typing in this code into your YouTube search bar. So you need the text, the question paper, a highlighter and a pen and paper before you go any further. Pause now to make sure you're ready, and if you need to, go back and complete the first video on the language question. So what does a structure question look like? The format is always the same. It will ask you now need to think about the whole of the source. How has the writer structured the text to interest you as a reader? And then it will pull out 3 things that you could write about. What the writer focuses your attention on at the beginning, how and why the writer changes this focus as the source develops, and any other structural features that interest you. The question is only asking you to write about structure, so what does that mean? How can I write about structure? You might have a bingo card with some keywords on it, something like this, that will help you. If you're using these words, you're most likely to be writing about the structural details in the text. This can be a good starting point if you're not sure where to begin. Another way of approaching the structure question might be to ask yourself some key questions about how the text is put together. For instance, what is the role of time in the passage? Do things happen in chronological order? If so, what's the pace like? If not, why not? And what is the effect? What is the role of setting? How do you find out where events take place? Is setting foregrounded? And if it is, why? Whose perspective are events being described from? What's the effect of this? What about the characters? Who are they? How are they introduced? What's the relationship between how you find out about the characters and how you find out about the setting? How is the text constructed? What patterns can you see in the sentences and in the paragraphs? What are the building blocks of the text? Are there short sentences, questions, patterns of verbs? How do these develop or change as the text goes on? Your job in this question, however you approach it, is to identify features of structure like these on the bingo card, or like the ones that we've just discussed. You need to explain what the writer is drawing your attention to using that structural feature. And you need to comment on the likely effect on the reader. With all of this in mind, pause the video here. Take a highlighter and a pen, reread the Rose for Winter text, annotate around the edge features of structure that you notice, and try to explain what the writer is drawing your attention to and what the effect of that is. Pause here. So what might you have noticed? Well, the extract starts with a long paragraph which is clearly focusing on developing a sense of atmosphere. The writer does this through introducing the setting and some of the typical characters, the crowd. The characters are really caricatures rather than individuals. This is also developed in that second paragraph, and the intention is vividly to reproduce for the reader the history and character of the setting so that we enjoy the narrator's responses later on. We're supposed to understand that this place is not like home for the writer. You might notice that both of these paragraphs are written in the present tense, as though this is habitual or even timeless. In the middle, the writer changes the focus to the narrator's experience. We get the first person pronoun I here for the first time. It also shifts into the past tense. Again, you'd want to say that the focus is changing from the normal atmosphere of this setting to the individual, unique experience of the narrator. There's an emphasis on the sentences in this paragraph too, on eating and drinking, to develop our relationship with the narrator and our interest in his experience. At the end, there are 3 short paragraphs. The tone has changed too. Here the writer introduces another character, or rather describes an encounter with another character because they're still focused on the narrator and his response, rather than this other man. He uses dialogue to introduce this moment of action. The short paragraphs create the impression that the new character is nervous. He is, after all, selling illegal products, and also perhaps the narrator is amused by the encounter. The reader is supposed to understand that this is typical because the narrator sighs, contrabando, repeating the Spanish word. To write clearly about the structure, I'd consider forming your paragraph like this. Firstly, identify the feature of structure. Secondly, explain what the writer does with that feature. Thirdly, quote, to back up how you know this is what the writer is doing. And then finally, explore the effect. And the more you analyse effect like this, the higher your mark is likely to be. For the higher bands, you'll also want to offer an overview, couple of sentences at the start of your answer. So let's have a look at what that might look like. The passage is structured in 2 sections. In the first, the writer focuses on the creation of atmosphere. In the second, the reader's attention shifts to the narrator's experience on his first night in the town. The tense changes from present to past, and this interests the reader as we're first immersed in the setting so that we can better understand the events that the narrator experiences. What I'm trying to do here is explore the overall shape of the text. I'm being technical when I do so by describing tenses, but more importantly I'm also trying to describe the overall journey of the reader. Our focus goes from setting to events, and the purpose of this is to give us a sense of atmosphere so that we have a better understanding of how and why the narrator's experience is interesting and perhaps unlike our own in our hometown. I then need to explore in more detail the individual elements of structure, so a paragraph might look something like this. The opening of the extract uses a long paragraph to introduce the atmosphere of nostalgia, of a busy sociable evening, and to introduce the types of characters that inhabit the town at night. The writer does not focus on any particular people, but instead describes the crowd and creates caricatures. For instance, the people are described as a multitude, and the writer zooms in on the girls and the young men as though they are all the same. This is also developed in the second long paragraph, which mentions women, sailors, old men, and beggar children. The effect of this is that we might imagine a vast number of people, but we also understand that they are not important to the narrator as individuals. Instead, we feel a bit like he does, overwhelmed in a new place that's not very familiar. Furthermore, the use of the present tense makes the reader feel that the town is always like this, and it becomes our experience rather than just the narrator's. So I've identified some features of structure here. I've explained what the writer is doing. I've quoted to justify my ideas, and I've analysed the effect on the reader. An answer to this question is worth 8 marks. It should take you about 12 minutes to write. You can use this video to help you finish off this answer, either by looking at the advice for what to write about, or by looking at the way to structure a paragraph, or both. Good luck with your response, and thank you for watching.